On this Monday, post-All-Star edition of Locked On Grizzlies, Ja Morant made some headlines over the weekend. Maybe he's pondering return to the All-Star game dunk contest, that is. Maybe not a return, a debut, a triumphant rising from the proverbial ashes to do some dunks. We'll talk about that here momentarily. Plus, Vince Williams Jr. repping it out for the Grizzlies at the Rising Star Challenge and all the All-Star festivities. DeMichael Cole and I got it all for you on this episode of Locked On Grizzlies. Let's lock in.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is a Monday edition of Locked On Grizzlies, a post-All-Star edition of Locked On Grizzlies, a President's Day edition of Locked On Grizzlies, or Washington's birthday, however you want to take it. It is a wonderful day, whether you have the day off from work, whether you are stuck in your job, going to work, however you check out Locked On Grizzlies. DeMichael Cole and I appreciate you being with us, whether it's on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, literally anywhere you get podcasts. Hopefully you're liking, you're commenting, you're rating, you're reviewing, you're subscribing to Locked On Grizzlies. We are proud members of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team each and every day. The one exception to that is going to be tomorrow's episode. There will be no episode for tomorrow because DeMichael Cole and I, we're going to take a one-day All-Star break. So no episode on Tuesday. You've got Monday, and then we'll be back with you on Wednesday. DeMichael, obviously, it was All-Star weekend, and we'll get to Vince Williams Jr. and how he appeared on the Rising Stars court. For me, the absence of another young Grizzly kind of stood out more than Vince Williams Jr. did, and we can talk more about that. You know, we can talk about the big three-point contest, Steph versus Sabrina, and all those sorts of things. Lots of fun stuff to discuss. Gate City, Virginia, step up, right? Stand up, Mac McClung, back-to-back slam dunk champion, all sorts of different topics we can cover. But first, DeMichael, I know you saw it. I saw it too. Ja Morant posting on X, you know, the eye emoji, the thinking about the dunk contest again. I'm excited about this idea. Obviously, Jaylen Brown trying to revive it from an all-star perspective. Yeah. When I was younger, DeMichael, back in my day, right?
So take us back, Joe. Take us back to you.
You had all-stars participating in this slam dunk contest, not worried about becoming memes, not worried about being defeated or getting embarrassed. They just wanted to compete and put on a show and probably win whatever the prize money was, if we're all being honest with each other. Yeah. For whatever reason, that has faded over the last several years. I believe that the fear of injury is on a minor scale.
Cool.
I think that's the bigger deal, right? Like even more so than the home run derby in the All-Star game for baseball, where you literally, like you see stories all the time about guys kind of swinging themselves out of their rhythm and all that sort of stuff. You watch layup lines and guys like Ja Morant and Zion Williamson and all these dominant athletes put up dunks that some of them were better than what we saw in the dunk contest. So I know you agree with me that Ja Morant should totally do the dunk contest next year, whether he's an all-star or not. We can talk more about that later. But the way that we get there is a little bit different. I'll let you go first. I think yours is a little more, I don't want to say shallow, maybe simple is a better way to explain it.
Yeah. And before I get to that, let's go through the whole picture here, because this is a conversation that's been had 2 or 3 times at this point, Joe. Ja Morant dunk contest. If some of you'll remember, I think it was 2021, he had a Bleacher Report interview with Taylor Rooks. And that's when Ja Morant basically said that, I think he said something like he doesn't plan on doing the dunk contest. Like if they were to get him to do it, that 1 million wouldn't be enough. He said he need 10 million or 12 million. Basically, he said,
a lot has changed since then.
He said, I'm getting there. And he basically said that. And he said, what was the other thing? Oh, the diapers. Remember, he was like, I got to get my daughter diapers. I think Kari was around like 2 or 3 at the time. Then it was last year in Utah. You remember, Joe, the nice new shoes, the Mount Ja? The introduction and whatnot, like Nike, pretty much how they did for Devin Booker this year. They put on a show for Ja Morant with his signature shoe. And getting to your point, Joe, he said something like, that the $1 million prize was okay, but then He backed off of it. And Ja Morant's exact quote was basically, I don't ever plan on doing the dunk contest. He basically shut it down, debunked it right there. Then there have been a couple times on X, back then it was Twitter, where he shut the idea down. So this isn't, a new conversation, so to speak. He shut this down 2 or 3 times before publicly. And even, privately, like me talking to him, I've heard him just, say, no, not interested. Like very quick, very brief, no long drawn out reason, just not interested. So you see that emoji, the thinking emoji. He put the thinking emoji up under a tweet where someone, I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember the exact tweet off the top of my head, but basically it was like, can somebody give Ja Morant $1 million to do this contest? And Ja, responded to the tweet with a thinking face. Didn't say anything else, just left the suspicion there. And you're right, Joe. We both think that Ja Morant should do this contest. You're right. And you're also right about the fact that my reason is much simpler than yours. My reason is very simple. He is arguably the best in-game dunker. He is arguably the most electrifying dunker. He should be in the dunk contest. Vince Carter was in the dunk contest.
True.
I mean, Blake Griffin was in the dunk contest when he was the best in-game dunker. LeBron, he flashed us out. LeBron said that, you can count me in Dallas next year. I'll be in the dunk contest when Nate Robinson and Dwight Howard were going at it. And then the All-Star game in Dallas happened and LeBron wasn't in it. So, and he recently said that, it's not a legacy defining thing for him, basically. So I think he should do it for none other than the fact that he is one of the more electric players in the game. And I'm sure we'll talk about this in the last segment a little bit more when we recap All-Star Weekend. But to me, a part of the reason that All-Star game, and this is completely up for debate because this is just my opinion, Mac McClung shouldn't be competing in the NBA dunk contest. He's not getting minutes. He's not getting minutes on the NBA team. Like if you're gonna put Mac McClung in the contest, we might as well go get these guys off YouTube that do these dunks.
Whoa!
Yeah,
no way.
It's for the stars.
Mac McClung is in the G League at least. He's an affiliate of the G League.
The G League.
Well, but that's different than a dude on YouTube doing it in a high school gym.
Don't let these Grizzlies G League success stories fool you now. Right? Mac
wow.
Okay.
I'm shocked by the hate.
We can circle back to this later.
Okay, yeah, we'll talk more about this later. The haterade.
My point is, look, Ja Morant, just like Jaylen Brown, and Jaylen Brown got clowned for it a little bit. And,
Jaylen Brown just got beat by Mac McClung. Maybe that's why those guys don't do it.
Oh, please. But it should be the stars, and Ja Morant is arguably the best dunker. One of the more high flying guys, and he's creative. His players, his teammates have talked about it. Like, I think it's a good idea for him to do it, just from an entertainment perspective. For me,
it's a good idea for him to do it even beyond that. For me, because if you want to talk about something to restore your place as the next great American basketball player, imagine coming back and saving the dunk contest. And being that guy that is the headlining star. No offense to Jaylen Brown. It's just different levels in terms of the attention paid to Ja. And in the last year or so, it's been negative attention, right? We're almost coming up on the year anniversary here next month of everything kind of falling out for him, starting to fall out at least. So what better way to put yourself back in the Q score rating in a positive manner than being that dude who unseats Mac McClung and becomes that, dunk champion and makes it cool again. We'll talk more about it. I mean, he won the last two, Michael. He won the last two by the rules that are established. But anyway, we'll talk more about that. I think that the big thing for Ja is he has to start thinking about that. And I'm sure that has already been floated. I'm not in public relations. Ja has lots of people that have forgotten more about, how public perception is important than I'll ever know. I just see that as a very easy win, in my opinion. It's even if he doesn't win, right? Let's say that Ja comes out and he just puts on a show, to your point, is entertaining. And people are like, it was just really cool that one of the top 20 players on the planet actually did this. That, again, and no disrespect to Jaylen Brown, you could argue he's in that conversation as well. Ja just is in a different realm in terms of his popularity, right? So how Ja can get back in the good graces of the league, the good graces on the national fan base, because there's a large chunk of Memphis Grizzlies fans that are going to love Ja Morant regardless of what he does, right? We've seen that over the last 11 months or so. But you put Ja in other places that aren't, necessarily young people. I do think there's something to X being, and social media at large being, an echo chamber, right? Like if people were really that pissed off at Ja Morant, he still wouldn't be selling out his shoes the way he is. None of those things would be happening. But perception is reality. And I do think that when a casual fan thinks about Ja Morant, they think of all of the issues he's had over the last year as opposed to how good of a basketball player he is. That is an easy stage to remind everybody just how good Ja Morant can be. So I know Ja listens to Locked On Grizzlies. Side note, I don't know that. If you do listen, Ja Morant, consider DeMichael and I big fans of the idea of you doing the dunk contest. Different reasons, but we get to the same end point. When we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies, we're going to talk about Vince Williams Jr. being the one representative, if you're not counting Jelly Roll. I don't know if you saw that or not, DeMichael, but Jelly Roll rocking a Memphis Grizzlies coat on Sunday night going into the All-Star game. I still barely know who Jelly Roll is. But anyway, I'm getting distracted. Vince Williams Jr. was the one on-court rep for the Grizzlies. We'll talk about that Rising Stars game, Vince Williams Jr.'s place in it, next here on Locked On Grizzlies. But first, this episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by Grammarly. Big fans of Grammarly. DeMichael and I are. DeMichael, of course, is a writer for the Commercial Appeal there in Memphis, Tennessee. Myself, a former writer. No matter what kind of work you do, how you communicate is key. And Grammarly is an AI writing partner to help you communicate more effectively and efficiently so you can make a bigger impact at work. 96% of Grammarly users report that Grammarly helps them craft more impactful writing. Grammarly lurks across 500,000 apps and websites, and tone suggestions help you navigate even the most difficult work conversations. You can save time with one click, go from editing drafts in hours to seconds, and data privacy and security are woven into the foundation of Grammarly. It's a secure AI writing partner helping your team make their point and move faster. Make a bigger impact at work with Grammarly. Sign up and download for free at Grammarly.com/podcast. That's GRAMMARLY.com/podcast. Easier said, done. When we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies, again, Vince Williams Jr. repping for Memphis. Will he be there again? We'll talk about it next. Stick with us. Welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. I'm Joe Mullinax, flying here with my co-host, DeMichael Cole, the Commercial Appeal in Memphis, Tennessee. I'm flying like Mac McClung, right? I feel like DeMichael, I feel like I might have found something that might annoy him a little bit. So I'm going to get to needle my partner. I don't know if you're on YouTube, you can see me. I'm gliding. I'm light as a feather, just like Mac McClung, jumping over Shaquille O'Neal and winning a second straight dunk contest. Gate City, Virginia, stand up. And we'll talk more about that here later. We'll try not to let it devolve into DeMichael and I just yelling at each other about it. We'll talk about other aspects as well. But we do want to cover the Grizzlies-specific piece of All-Star Weekend. Ja Morant was in the X headlines and Twitter conversations, but he was not actually on the floor, of course. Vince Williams Jr. was. And it capped off a busy week for him, partner. You mentioned that on X and in articles that you wrote on the subject. It was his fourth game in 5 days. I think he had 1 day off, maybe that Tuesday. He didn't have a game to play in. He didn't do a ton in the Rising Stars Challenge, and the game itself, we'll talk more about this in a little bit, I'm sure. The NBA has a problem with making this something that is worth watching to, again, the casual fan. And the ratings were good for All-Star Saturday Night and all that sort of stuff. I think a major part of that was the NBA versus WNBA competition that I'm sure we'll address more in depth in the final segment. It probably wasn't that exciting for Vince Williams Jr. And if you watch the guys on the floor, it wasn't that exciting for them either. I couldn't help but watch it, partner, and feel like as good as Vince has been, and he's been really good, I kind of, it felt like it's going to sound like I'm a hater making fun of you for your Mac McClung take. It kind of looked like he didn't belong. And you might disagree with me, and that's fine. It just, you've got Wemby out there, and you've got Chet Holmgren, and you got all these other big stars. And that doesn't mean that what Vince Williams Jr. does for the Grizzlies isn't important. It means in that context, it was like he was one of the other guys alongside the rest of these true quote unquote rising stars.
Okay. I'll peel this back in two ways. And one, I'll start with the part what I agree with you on. I think when you talk about, remember when we were talking about the Rising Stars Challenge last week, we were talking about the idea that you can go back in 5, 6, 7, 8 years and look at where guys' careers have gone since that game. I think, I don't think anyone would argue with you if you say you go back, 5, 6, 7, 8 years from now, and Paolo Banchero, Victor Wembanyama, Chet Holmgren are all multi-time All-Stars, where Vince Williams is kind of just craved out a nice niche as, a solid role player on a team. Maybe, someone who, guys like CJ McCollum have never made an All-Star game. So it's no disrespect by this, but it's just saying, become a really solid role player who maybe never becomes, a Sunday player, a Sunday All-Star game player. But I'm not using that game, that game in particular, to come to that conclusion.
Sure, I understand that.
And, so here's my thing on the product overall, the Rising Star Challenge. I actually I'm okay with I like the format, to 50 the first game or whatever. No, 45 the first game, and then the second game, I think they went to 25. Semifinals, you break it up into 4 teams. You got a G League heavy team, which was the team that actually ended up playing well. And then you got the other 3 teams, and the team Vince Williams played on lost in the semifinals. So we got a glimpse of Vince Williams on, and he made one shot. Knocked down a 3-pointer, and pretty much that was it. He didn't play much defense. He even said it, wasn't coming out there. And who should be surprised, right? You had games the last 2 days and a flight after that game. Like, expecting him to go out there and play defense is wild. And on top of that, he got up that morning, had practice and media availability, all-star media availability. So, it was a heavy schedule. So you just wanted to go in there, go through the motions, and have fun with it. It wasn't anything that I took from it more than that. I just think, it was a good experience. I do think when we look back, like if we're kind of projecting where these guys go from here, I think when you're talking about Vince Williams, you can talk about one of the better wing defenders that came out of that game. Because I liked, again, going back to the format, I liked the idea. There were a couple things I liked. Well, Benedict Mathurin going at Jaden Ivey was fun TV. Basically telling them, hey, you can't guard me one-on-one. Jaden Ivey didn't look like he had fun with it being said. But it added, some extra flavor. It added some extra flavor to the game and whatnot. And Benedict Mathurin, because he was, wired up or whatever, going to the free throw line, betting the player. I think it was Paolo Banchero actually betting him $25K that he makes the free throws and missing them. So little things like that, added a little bit of a flair to the game overall, which I'm fine with. I'm fine with, but I'm not coming away with any big term conclusions on Vince Williams from that standpoint. I think, as his career goes on, he's going to have a very solid NBA career regardless. Now, those star guys that you just mentioned at the top, I don't think he's in their conversation, but I don't think anyone in, on the Grizzlies side is frowning upon that idea, because you got John Morant, Desmond Bain, Jaren Jackson Jr. You don't need him to be your 4th All-Star. You just need him to, I can finally go back to the term I used to say all last season, star in his role. Remember I used to say it all last season, Joe, when we were talking about Steven Adams and Brandon Clark and all these different dudes, starring in your role, and he's the next guy in that Grizzlies lineage that can do that.
That's much more important than anything involving the Rising Stars Challenge. And I do think that we have to remember he was a replacement for the game, right? He wasn't originally even put there.
And getting to that, I didn't even think Dyson, like from the jump, that was my problem. Like Dyson Daniels over Vince, but I digress. Yeah.
Well, I think that, to your point, the game is kind of a showcase for talents that are not necessarily as flashy as what Vince Williams Jr. brings to the table. Now, say Gigi Jackson makes this game next year as a Rising Stars, but that's a guy whose
different.
Game is tailor-made for this kind of participation in this kind of event. And I'll be very interested to see if Gigi is indeed in that mix this time next year. No disrespect to Vince Williams Jr. You're exactly right about the star in his role. I think that it's more so it was a square peg, round hole in terms of the talent and the way the talent was being displayed.
I see.
playing the type of defense that Vince Williams Jr. does, being an elite rebounder on the wing. That kind of stuff isn't as attractive in that setting as scoring in bunches like Gigi Jackson is capable of doing. Yeah, Jokic is a great example.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something to keep in mind. Like, you don't watch the All-Star game to watch Jokic, and you're not watching the Rising Stars Challenge to watch Vince Williams Jr. Doesn't mean, Jokic is the best basketball player on the planet, right? It doesn't mean that they're not good. It means for that particular event, maybe they don't fit as well as other types of talent in the league. But again, he was the one Grizzlies representative outside of Jelly Roll's jackets. So shout out to Vince Williams Jr. He represented Memphis well, the media availabilities, all those things. Good stuff. When we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies, we're going to close out this episode talking about the rest of the All-Star weekend, the big WNBA versus NBA three-point showdown, the three-point contest, Indy as a host city. I'll try to make DeMichael mad again talking about Mac McClung. Gate City, stand up, right? We're going to talk about that next here on Locked On Grizzlies. But first, I want to remind you that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. It's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. This episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by Nissan. Big fan of Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. The Nissan Rogue is perfect for city drives and great escapes. The 2024 Nissan Rogue has the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure with built-in Google always updating assistant to call on for almost anything. You can also ride with the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder, has room up to 8, an expansive cargo capacity, and advanced available 4x4 capability. Take the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Pathfinder, or even the Nissan Armada 2024 versions and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. When we come back, closing out All-Star Weekend. Overall thoughts. Stick with us. Welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. I'm Joe Mullinax with my co-host Michael Cole of the Commercial Appeal. They're in Memphis, Tennessee. He's the Memphis Grizzlies beat writer for that publication. I've covered the Memphis Grizzlies here, there, and everywhere over the last decade plus. You've come to the right place for Memphis Grizzlies content. And a friendly reminder, we will be taking off on Tuesday. No Tuesday episode of the show. Our All-Star break will be one whopping day. But we want to stay in a groove, catch our breath briefly, but we'll start looking ahead to, the rest of the season, maybe some reviews, season MVP so far, most improved player between Gigi Jackson and Vince Williams. I feel like that might be an episode in and of itself. All sorts of things that we'll talk about later on in the week. But again, no new episode on Tuesday. DeMichael, overall takeaways from All-Star Weekend. Obviously, the All-Star game itself, for me, the fact that LeBron James was in his 20th All-Star game. I saw a post, I think it was Alex Kennedy on X, talking about how the first time that LeBron was in an All-Star game, he started alongside the likes of like Grant Hill and Allen Iverson and those types of guys, Shaquille O'Neal. And now he's out there, with an entirely new, different generation of basketball players. Some of them, when he started his first All-Star game, were in diapers, right? So it's just phenomenal to think about the impact that LeBron has had on the game. Again, the three-point shooting contest, Steph Curry winning, but I would argue the WNBA actually won in that event. There's so many interesting things from this past All-Star Saturday night, including the Rising Stars game. It's not just the game itself, and I do want to give the NBA credit for making it feel like an event, especially the first football-free weekend since, August, basically. Yeah. Taking that time, will it translate to watching regular season games? Who knows? But I do think the NBA has made All-Star Weekend feel like an overall event that's must-see, and I'm sure that's their goal.
Yeah, just the Friday, Saturday lineup is always really nice to me.
I like that better than the game. I don't know about you, but especially
Saturday night. Saturday night is the biggest.
Correct.
For me. And the thing about Saturday night to me is it can be even better. Like I think there's a debate to be had about a one-on-one competition, 3 dribbles to be had. I mean, think about it. Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, these great one-on-one scorers. Give them just 3 dribbles and let the best one-on-one players go at it to 5 and whatnot. But just getting into this past weekend, right? Of course, to me, the highlight was Steph Curry, Sabrina Ionescu, just seeing
So
those
much
two.
fun.
I mean, because she's been fun to watch since Oregon. Yeah, she was on the Oregon team that was in a collision course for South Carolina, Oregon that year, and then the pandemic, shuts them down, and we didn't get to see him. Potential all-time great meetup in NCAA's, but she's come to the W already, and terrific career already. Led New York Liberty to the finals and whatnot. And the thing about her that impressed me the most is she wanted this, and it's like it's her. I kept reminding me, I was like, it's her off season right now, which is kind of funny. Like, just imagine Steph, like, during his off season, just stepping into the W's 3-point.
If she's smart, she's going to call his ass out for their All-Star game in the summer. That's what I should
call
do.
him right back out. Yeah,
stop doing holy moly or whatever nonsense he's putting on ABC and come shoot some threes at the W All-Star game.
And the thing about it is, she matched the winning score of the actual 3-point competition. She had 26. Someone said she just had to go against Thanos. And I'm gonna throw a wrestling reference out there. I know you're gonna like this one, Joe. I saw someone say that after, because we know Steph is just otherworldly in these competitions. They said next year Stephen Curry should be in the 3-point competition, and they should just throw contestants out there Royal Rumble style, like just run different guys out there against them and see what happens.
I like that. Like, have Reggie Miller just randomly show up, and that's
by God,
that would have been
Reggie.
fun for this year since it was by God, it's Reggie Miller. No, that would be great. Wherever the All-Star game is next year, that would be like whoever the legend is, throw them out there and have them, unless it's in Vegas. In that case,
it's in San Fran. So
okay, well there you go, Steph again.
Chris Mullins.
Throw Chris Mullin out there. Throw Dirk out there. Yeah, that sort of stuff. No, I like that idea. No, I thought Sabrina was phenomenal. And I loved, we're entering this era of sports where it's not just, lip service that women can do these things too, right? Especially in a sport like basketball where there's so much skill involved. It's not as much physical collision and contact.
Right.
There's so much that can be done skill to skill. And I thought that the NBA nailed this. And I'm being serious, that they should run it back at the WNBA All-Star game. And I think that Steph is a good guy to bring in for that event, right? I think he's the right kind of ambassador to have that type of thing. So I thought that was my highlight. I really enjoyed that. I really, really appreciated how they talked about, as a father of 2 daughters myself, it's just nice to see that movement. We're in an era where women are able to do so much more than ever in American history, you could argue, much less sports. And, that should be common sense in 2024. But, of course, it's not necessarily, and that's not necessarily a political thing. Hopefully we can just say, women can do stuff. That shouldn't be that controversial. Something that is controversial, we'll get out of here on this to Michael Cole. Why do you hate Mac McClung so much, man? Gate City's finest, dude.
I have no beef with the guy.
He jumped over Shaq. He had some pretty impressive dunks. A lot more than Jaylen Brown jumping over like a 4-foot tall person sitting in a chair.
But you know what? In the back of my head, it's going to be, I can't just go buy this guy's NBA jersey after he won the dunk contest. like let's be honest here. Look,
you can find a Gate City jersey on Etsy or something like that.
Oh, please! You're not walking in a frat party with that on. Like
in Gate City, Virginia, you are. Yeah. You go to Radford University, you're a legend in that jersey.
So here's my thing. So Joe, you recap All-Star Weekend. There are a bunch of events that go on that a lot of people don't know about.
Sure, right? That's true.
One of the events is the actual event that Matt McClung should have been in at Saturday at 2 p.m. There was the NBA G League Slam Dunk Contest. That is the competition that he should have been in. Oh. There was a G League Slam Dunk Contest. That's what Mac McClung should be in. Look, man, at the end of the day, part of what makes these things great is the build-up, the anticipation. You mentioned it. We just touched on it. Why this Saturday All-Star Weekend was so highly viewed. I think it was up 54% from last year because of the buildup for over a month with Sabrina and Steph. Like, that was what we all were waiting on. All the talk leading up to it. Would she shoot from the 3-point line? Oh, the ball. And it built up. It's the same thing with Ja. If he were to do this and give a heads up of a month or so, the buildup would be insane for something like this. But I don't think
that brings it
anyone's
full circle.
No one's like, yeah, Matt Clun's doing the slam dunk contest. I think what makes this event special is the Jason Richardsons, the Vince Carters, the Nate Robinsons, the Dwight Howards, the Zach Levines, the Aaron Gordons. I don't think you even have to. It doesn't have to be the NBA stars. It just has to be NBA players. One of my favorite side things about All-Star Weekend, and Joe, you can take it after this, but one of the things I like is the fact that, like, when a guy's about to dunk and you see his teammates, over there cheering him on. Who's cheering Mac McClung on? He doesn't have any teammates over there. Like, he should be playing Saturday at 2:00 in the G League slam dunk contest and let the guys that get paid the NBA money play in that one.
I mean, he's won it back-to-back years, so it sounds like the NBA guys are scared.
So the YouTube guys can get in, right?
Brown. No, they can't because they're not in the G League. At least there's an NBA connection to Mac McClung. There are dozens and dozens of people in Gate City, Virginia, that support Mac McClung tremendously. Dozens of them to Michael Cole, and you're just poo-pooing all over their hopes and dreams. Shout out to Mac McClung, Gate City's finest. He, if Ja Morant participates, I agree with you completely. You tell Mac that, you were back-to-back. You can be a judge this year. We're going to have Ja Morant do it in your stead. I support that.
So that's my question to you. That's my question to you. So if he wants to three-peat, since you're all for him doing it, let's say Ja Morant, Anthony Simons. Well, I could throw a better name out there than Anthony.
Zion
Williamson, Ja Morant, and Shaedon Sharpe. Let's say those three guys say, we want to do the dunk contest. And who's the fourth? Give us the fourth.
Jaylen Brown comes back. Just say he wants to try it again since these other guys are giving it a shot.
Well, I don't know if he moves the needle that much. A high flyer, more of a high flyer out there.
Somebody like Obi Toppin,
that. Obi Toppin. If those four guys want to do it, you think they say, sorry, Obi, but Mac McClung's got to defend his two?
No, Mac McClung's going to the dunk contest at 2:00 on Saturday.
That's my point. That's my point.
And he's a judge Saturday night, and they hype him up. The greatest dunker of the last 5 years, Mac McClung. They'll give him some love, but he's not going to be in the contest. No, you're exactly right.
That's my point
about that. Yeah. So hopefully, Ja, again, if you're watching this, to Michael and I both, we would really like to see you do it. I want to see you do it to kind of rehab your image or continue to do so. DeMichael just wants to see you fly and dunk on dudes. And there is something to be said for him, like jumping over Jaren Jackson Jr. and just all sorts of fun things. It would be fun to watch, not disputing that. It's fun to watch Locked On Grizzlies, and hopefully you've been checking us out on YouTube, listening on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available there. Like, comment, rate, review, subscribe. As proud members of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team each and every day. Remember that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. It's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. 24/7 covering the top sports stories of the day, local experts of Locked On, plus national shows covering every league. Again, Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channels app. No new show on Tuesday. Hopefully you'll forgive us, to Michael and I taking a bit of an all-star breather, but we will be back on Wednesday. Again, I like that Gigi versus Vince Williams Jr. conversation for most improved player. I think that could lead to some good content to Michael, and that'll probably be one of the main focuses of our show on Wednesday. For DeMichael Cole, I am Joe Mullinax. Thank you so much, everyone. Hopefully you had a great all-star weekend. Enjoy the respite, the breather, and we'll be back with you on Wednesday on Locked On Grizzlies. Have a good one.